Thank you. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hello, hello. Sorry. Mary Ellen. Okay. Sorry for keep you waiting. So I'm gonna continue. So if we look at the X here, so these are going to be available in the digital download probably next week. So this is for you to help you how you study when you look at your alphabet. The first that I suggest to think about is definitely in Engrosser script is oval. So the first oval in the X for sure is here. Okay, then it will bleed into a larger oval. Of course, you come down. This is one smaller oval, and this is another skinny oval. The whole thing kind of an oval. It is an oval, but it's just a little bit quite big, right? Okay, so that's oval. Looking at the slant, so mean slant, you notice this curve and this in the center will hit the 55-degree slant. If you add the slant here, ideally the middle will also rest on the 55-degree slant, and this oval, it's slightly off slant, so instead of on slant, this is slightly off, similar to what we learned from P, B, and R last time. Okay, so this small oval is not on slant, it is off slant, which is quite interesting. Maybe we use a different color just to show you. Now the rest, if you have this oval, you notice this oval is also on slant. This one, you can think about it like here and dissect it here, also on slant. So just one little oval at the beginning in your indirect oval entry is we'll call it off slant. I don't usually think about what degree. I'm just knowing that this oval is now like rotated clockwise, so it's more pointing this way, or you can say pointing this way. Now the next after slant we need to think about is your negative shade. So the negative shade in this, first of all, is the train track. So this and this should be parallel. So if you have the train, these are the tracks, so they are parallel train tracks. If you think about here and here, the train track also appear, right? What else can we see? With negative space, we can also think about the triangle. So you have a nice large triangle sitting here and here. Okay, and it should pretty much kind of like a mirror image. All right, if you think about here, if you fit a tiny triangle, that means if you can fit the tiny triangle, that means your ball-shaped terminal is actually in the right area, so it's lifted above the baseline. So you don't want the ball terminal to be touching the baseline, so it should be like lifted up. So what I mean is you want to come up and make the ball terminal. Okay, so I think for X we have the oval to think about, we have the slant to think about, the negative spacing to think about. Of course, if you want to think about the shade, yes, In my class, I like to say TTT to represent the shade. What it means is it's thin and then thick and then thin. So this is kind of like an easy way, kind of calligraphy 101, right? But if you want it to be sounding a little bit more professional, you can say hairline and then the shade and back to a hairline. So hairline, shade, and back to hairline. So it's gradation of thickness. Now looking at the X here, the shade will be, I used the little dot to represent the thickest in the middle of this part and back to thin again. Same curling down, you have the thickest in the center, and then these are gradation. Now there's no shade in this downstroke, which is quite unique. The main reason is because it's really wet on this area. You don't want to add another wet stroke because it will become a puddle. Maybe we can try it to show you. Okay, it's always useful to see it, then you will, or to actually do it yourself, then you learn not to do it. Okay, so that's the shade. Can you see that is still wet with some light reflection? Now if I come down, I don't know what's gonna happen. Whoa! I'm surprised that no fiber comes out. Usually it will. But can you see? Not very elegant, so I wouldn't recommend that. And it's not something on makeup, it's actually coming from all the Zaneri menu. If I pull out the Zaneri menu, wow, I'll make sure that I don't have the wet ink on my Zaneri menu. So this is the Zaneri menu. If I look for X, you can find this is nice and lovely, skinny. Same here, nice and skinny. Okay, this is very cool. It's a variation. You can just add a very thin S curve in the center, slightly above the center. Okay, now coming back here, so I was saying the TTT. The thin, thick, and thin. So here, even if you're doing synthetic shade, that is the heaviest point in the center. So it's also gradation. But make sure the synthetic shade, they are not as thick as the primary shade. Okay. Let's move on to the second alphabet. Okay, it's the letter Q. We will use without ink. Now, first of all, you have indirect oval entry, which is from thin, thicker, back to thin hairline, just touching the middle point between the ascender and the waistline. You come up and then come down, slowly adding more pressure, heaviest in the center, and then back to thin line. Keep going. Make a loop that is flat. It's like a little fish, right? A fish that is swimming horizontally. So this way. And I'll lift. Then when the line cross, I lift because it gives me a reminder to curve out, so like an S curve, or you can call this the line of universal beauty, because essentially it's the same concept. You have a curve, then you come on the slant, and then you exit in the curve. So this is essentially like the line of this beauty line, right? So you have soft oval. This is the part where it's on the slant, and then you have the small oval. So if you think about here, this is your small oval, this is your part where it sits on the slant, then you exit with, there's another oval. So they are the same, it's just the orientation is different. Sorry, I make a mess here. So I did print out the second page. There you go. So it's cleaner to look at this one. Great. Where were I? Up, relax, coming down, add pressure, coming down, lift, come out, curve, and up, lift. Remind yourself you can rotate the paper by putting it anti-clockwise. Okay, anti-clockwise, and then you can add the shade on top. Sorry, one more time, on top of the hairline. Very light, very light. Otherwise, it may covered this teardrop, which you don't want to. That's the Q, which looks like a number 2. Now the second option, an alternative letter form for letter Q, which was commonly used in the past, is this one, which I always think looks like Tintin with that nice lovely fringe, the hair coming down. So you start with here, adding pressure, heaviest in the middle point, coming down, reducing pressure back to a hairline, going up, and then slowly adding pressure, heaviest in the center, and then back to a point and lift. Then you want to retrace this line, add pressure, and cut in. Now notice this is a perpendicular entry, meaning the entrance is like a cross. Okay, you don't want it to enter in a different angle, so you always want to enter in perpendicularly, which is like a 90 degree. And then the last part, the mustache, is rotating the nib from on slant to this. I usually use my hand to move instead of the paper. For this, you curve down, reduce the pressure, and then curve out. Technically, you can say this is the line of universal beauty as well, because this is also a small oval. Do you see the same concept is applying? This is the oval. This is the part where it should be on the slant, so it could be this slant, then it back to a larger oval. Okay, so yeah, it looks like a snake hanging. Okay, if you're interested in this form, we'll talk more in 2 weeks time, because it will appear in group 8 in the letter group with letter O inside. Cool. So let's do this. We will just use the number 2Q. Too cute, let's call it. Very too cute. Number 2, cute, too cute. So we have oval. Easy. First, indirect oval, going into a larger oval. Okay, you can think about this is the oval, or this itself, the whole thing is the oval. And this will have an oval sitting. This also have an oval. A little bit messy, so let's use one more time. 1, 2, the line of universal beauty have the oval. Okay, Next thing we want to think about is the slant. So if you have the slant here, this part is curved, this curve, the center point will touch on the slant. Same here. And then what is different is this will be pointing out that way, a little bit off slant. Now the next is your negative spacing, train tracks, the triangle. It actually happened right here. There's a slant. You can also think about if you want to fit a little triangle here, because if you can't fit, so it may mean this line is a little bit too low. And I also think about this when I say the little fishy. So this is like a little fish. Here. Cartoon drawing usually has a fin. You don't want this to be too big because it doesn't look too elegant if it's too big. You can definitely try writing it out. Let's try that. Okay, so quite obvious. Yeah, we don't like that. Okay, so try not to do that unless it's modern calligraphy, I guess. Then if it's modern calligraphy, you can add like a cool flourishing, like really dramatic. Oops. If the ink run out, this is what I usually do. The first thing when ink runs out, you will see the two lines because it comes from the tines, the ink remaining. Then I will dip my nib into ink, but I'll make sure that I slide on the edge of the inkwell so that I check my nib is not too much, doesn't have too much ink. Then you bring it slightly higher and then you trace it down. So that could be a nice modern cue. Okay. Sorry, this is a little bit wonky. Unless you're doing modern, I think. But if it's more classic style, more traditional, then keep it nice and simple. Last thing, what else can we figure out here? If you want to think about this slant here, there is also a triangle here. Usually the right side is larger. So this triangle, oops, the triangle here will be bigger than that. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's Q. Quickly, next one, U. Okay. Now, if we look at the U, let's zoom out a little bit. Okay. Without ink, let's try. Starting with an indirect oval entry, same thing that you've been learning. Up, relax. It will hit the ascender 2. You come down. Make sure you write on slant, 55-degree slant. The nib will slowly open up. Keep the pressure the same, meaning your index finger don't change the pressure. Before was the other alphabet was different because there's gradation of pressure, but here is the same thickness throughout until about here where we reduce the pressure. So you come down and keep this pressure down, 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 and then you reduce and will become to a point and you lift. Now, one little tips to show you, I know it may be a little bit detailed, but if I think about this box, right, have divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 approximately. Now just judge with your eye. So it's about a quarter where I fit the triangle, and on top of this triangle is where I start to reduce the pressure. Now have a look. Add pressure, reduce, lift. So if you want to think about it like about a quarter from the baseline, then you start reducing, because some of you may think, oh, what triangle, what size of a triangle, because it changes, depends what's the proportion you're using for the guideline. So if you're using, this is well, we're using a 5mm guideline, then whatever guideline you're using, about a quarter from the baseline, you start to reduce, then you should reach on the baseline in a point, okay, back to a point, and you lift. Now make sure this hairline that we're gonna go up, the connected hairline, you go up with no pressure, curving to the right and going up, and I would say very long and tall, okay? You come all the way up about the midpoint between, so I will stop here. I'll use the color pen, I'll come here, and I'll stop here. Quite high up, quite unusual. The reason I bring it so high up is because then when I do a down stroke here, there is something for me to follow. I know that I need to connect them. I need to come down covering the hairline. Okay, if I make it very short, it's really hard to, the distance is too far away, and it will be harder to judge whether it's accurate. Okay, so I'll come up. Okay, you want to come up, sorry, about here. Can be slightly higher, but the idea is at least the middle point between the A1 and the waistline. Then you lift, flat top, you draw a line, come back, open, keep the same pressure, reduce the pressure into a point and lift. Same concept as this. And then when you exit, when I'm exiting, I want to make sure this space is the same as your left hand side. So my eyes, instead of looking at the nib, looking at where the line will go, I'm looking here. So I would keep it balanced. This space and this will be balanced. All right. Now let's have a quick talk over, because I mentioned many things, so I just want to do a quick recap. Start with the hairline, coming down, adding pressure, back to hairline, going up, reach the ascender 2, immediately curving and coming down, add pressure and be on slant. Be consistent with your pressure until you hit about a quarter from the baseline. You reduce the pressure and you lift. And then you start with a light pressure. Remember, after you lift, you just remind yourself, oh, I need to be light. Because that's why, that's the difference between Engrosser script. We have to like lift a lot, right? By lifting, you have a moment to think, okay, I'm gonna go up light, and think about where you should end. You want to come up all the way to hit about the midpoint between ascender 1 and the waistline. Now you lift again, bring your nib up, then prepare your next stroke. Draw a flat line, come down, keep same pressure. At this point, it should cover the connection with the hairline here, keeping same pressure, and reduce the pressure in advance and lift. Same thing, approximately about a quarter from the baseline, you start to reduce the pressure and lift. You want to exit with an upstroke curve, okay, an exit stroke, which essentially the same curve here. So you can create the same container on both sides. Okay, now and come to here. So we have letter U. The first we think about oval, so first oval, then you have a larger oval. Okay, this oval is the second oval. Then you have here, this is an oval, and this is your second or the last oval. In an oval, there are two ball shapes. Sorry, it should look like this. Okay. So in an oval, it has two round shapes. So the first and the second. Now, the same thing is, if you think about this is your oval, this is your oval, or I should make it bigger. You have a round shape here and round shape here. So messy. 1, 2. So round shape, round shape. Essentially, it is an oval. So when you exit, you think about this curve as well. Besides thinking about the same spacing, you think about it's curving into an oval. Next, we think about slant. You have this point is on the slant. Make sure this is on slant. On slant. Well, if you curve, you notice this midpoint is on the slant. The only one that is slightly different is this oval, it's off slant. Negative spacing. String track. Parallel spacing. You want to think about the container, this space, it's equals to this as well. So this left and right, same space. Triangle, you can fit a nice triangle here because you bring your line up. If you exit this way, then the triangle will be very small. So make sure when you curve, you want to curve and go up instead of curve and hit horizontally. You don't want that. Okay. I guess I can do a quick demo on what I meant on that. Do you see? This is not pretty because this wasn't going up that way. Okay, so make sure you don't want to hit too flat. You want to come curve and go up and about here. Okay, now, so yeah, the negative space here. And think about this is empty here. Well, I don't know what to draw, but it should allow the air to go through. Okay, it should not be blocking. This line should not be touching on the ascender 2 line. Oh, there's one last triangle here. Now, Quickly moving on is letter Y. I hope this is really helpful. Y and U are very simple and similar. So same indirect oval entry, coming down, going up, relax, turn, adding pressure on the slant. Make sure this is shorter and you want to lift before you touch the waistline. Okay, one more time. You come down, same pressure, and reduce the pressure now and lift. So same concept. If you want to apply that tiny little triangle here, okay, it's about 1/4 from the waistline. So you fit that triangle. The top of the triangle is where you reduce the pressure. Then you do the same. You want to come up, curve quite high up with the connected hairline. Stops at around here, I would say the A1. Okay, quite high. Lift. Then you draw the line of universal beauty. Make sure you start kind of below the ascender. Okay, thin, thicker, thickest, back to thin, and the hairline curve up in the bow terminal and lift. Then you add the pressure and it will fill in the ink. Okay, so one more time. This can be judged by looking up to find the middle point of these two shades is where you stops the bowl shaped terminal. Thank you. I'm happy to hear. Sorry, because it's a bit quiet on the chat room, so I wasn't sure if it's boring or not. I shouldn't have any doubt, but and also my room is really hot. I'm getting a little bit like slow, my brain, but I can do it. I'm enjoying it though. So we start with a thin hairline, adding pressure, up, relax. Now when you come down, think about immediate thinking is on slant, add pressure, keep the same pressure, and reduce and lift. Then you want to go up, make sure it's go higher, not just like very short. Go up higher and lift. Then this will guide you to where you come down. You want to do the thin, thicker, thickest, back to thinner, and back to hairline, curving. Your eye should be checking, finding that midpoint, and make a ball-shaped terminal. Notice this ball-shaped terminal is lifted from the baseline like any other alphabet you are doing, and lift, and you add the pressure, just like that. Now we look at the last alphabet on this page. So again, I'm sure hopefully you already know all of this and you think this is extremely easy. So we have oval. First, indirect oval. Make sure indirect oval is going clockwise. Think about all these terms. Then there's a larger oval here. When you come down and up, there is your oval here. Remember I said in an oval there are two, it fits within two ball shape, right? So you can actually think about here as a round shape. This is a round shape. Then the line of universal beauty. You have this curve, which actually have a small oval here. Then come down. This is the heaviest shade, and then out. There's another oval. There are lots of oval. Now, of course, if you want to think about the whole alphabet, letter Y itself is an oval. Now it looks like an alien. can totally see an alien. Anyways. Like a scream, you know. This is the mouth. Okay. Next, slant. Main slant is on slant here. This is the middle point here is totally on slant. Again, this is the midpoint, the curve will be on slant. If we look at this clearly, if we zoom, it took me some time to understand what it's on slant. So if this is the indirect oval, do you notice that this point where the curve is, the middle of the curve, should be touching the 55-degree slant? So that's when it says it's on slant, not the whole line that it's on slant. It's just at this point it's on the slant. Okay, so it's when there's a curve and it's the middle of the curve, and it will sit on the slant, like right here. This will be completely on the slant because there's a whole downstroke here. This is the line of universal beauty. This is the part where it's on slant, the middle. Okay, well, the middle and let's say the shaded area, pretty on slant before it curve out. Now the negative space. Negative space is easy now. So you have this and this, the train track, parallel spacing. You want to think about there is a tiny little triangle fitting here as well, like the letter U. Do you remember the U we were saying? If you did a bad U, it will look like this. It will look like this, and the triangle is very narrow. So you really want to think about moving that connected hairline higher up, like curving this way instead of that way. Okay, because when I put a slant, a downstroke, you can see the triangle. This is nice and open. This is very narrow, or sometimes it's even covered. So you don't want that. You want this. So same concept applying to your Y is when you do the connected hairline up, you want to bring it higher up so that you will remain to have a triangle here. Especially when you do a downstroke, it will cover a lot of the spacing. So that triangle. So I guess, yeah, negative space mainly is that you can think about always lifting your ball-shaped terminal, the ball terminal higher up, so you can fit a triangle here and fit a triangle here as well. The triangle is more or less like a reminder of, you know, for this point, it's where I reduce the pressure, reduce pressure. This is to remind me, it's about a quarter. It's about a quarter from the baseline. It's where I put the terminal. Then you will have a consistent terminal. If you do A, if you do M or N, it will always be the same. If you think of it mindfully, right? Yeah. Well, I skip all the thick and thin. So at the beginning, I wrote down TTT. I think I don't have to say it, but maybe I can just quickly remind you. So the thickest part here, thin, thin. So thin, thickest, thin, thin, thickest in the middle, back to thin. U, thickest here. This is all the same, so I will fill it all in. But of course, this is getting thinner. This is thinner. This is all the same, but this part is getting thinner. And Y. So letter Y, you have thickest in the middle here. These are the thin line. Now this is like the U. You have thin, then thickest, takes up quite a lot of the downstroke. Then back to thin, because think about that triangle, right? So it go back to a point. This is thin, and the thickest in the middle. This is the line of universal beauty, and then back to thin. Okay, cool. Whew, almost 2 hours. I laugh because it's funny, because it's like my self-study, kind of repeating all these to remind myself of all the details, but there are also listeners. Cool. I hope this is really helpful. If you want, you can do a quick screenshot. We'll remove this, but as I said, I'm gonna have these ready for next week if you want to download them, and they will be very useful for you to analyze your alphabet. I will also have these kind of printed out, because I'm currently typing all the details, making sure that even people don't take my class can understand what I'm talking about in my writing. I try to keep it simple, not in a big paragraph, but in a point form. Okay, so if you don't have any question, thank you for joining in. And I have 2 more classes or live demo. Have 2 more live demo for the coming Wednesday. I'm thinking whether to do the lower cases in July. If you do want, please leave me a DM, because I want to know whether this is useful for most of you, or if you ever rewatch it, because I do see a lot of people rewatch on the IGTV. So no problem. If you join late, you can check out the live demo. I will save them, so it should be all from all the capitals. Actually, very luckily, I was able to save all of them. And if you follow me on YouTube, I also start sharing all the videos, usually 2 parts for each demo, because every part is 1 hour, on my YouTube channel. It's all under Kalo Make Art. Now, thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a great Wednesday evening, and stay safe no matter where you are in the world, and have fun writing. And I will see you next Wednesday. Take care. Thank you. Bye.